Here's a hint. There may be a lot more refrains of "Are we there yet?" Seema and Mody has more on what the path forward will look like. Seema?
Kelly, travel across the nation dried up at the height of the epidemic, with a closely watched revenue metric at Marriott declining 90% in April. Now, as beaches reopen, more Americans are starting to leave their house. For example, this weekend, the Ritz-Carlton in Santa Barbara, hotels in Hilton Head, South Carolina saw occupancy reach 50% based on reservations on the books. Marriott CFO telling me a broader recovery in travel rests on the containment of the virus and airlines returning to full capacity. Remember, a lot of hotels can only be accessed by plane. For example, the Canary Islands. What is also encouraging, the rebound in China, with hotel occupancy climbing from 10 to over 30% in recent weeks. Europe is expected to take the longest to recover. Experts say part of the reason is because it's driven heavily by vacationers and an older demographic that may be less willing to travel abroad before a vaccine for COVID-19 hits the market. Kelly?
Yep. Seema, we appreciate it. Thank you. As you just mentioned, hotel stocks have been under pressure for a few months now. But one hotel chain that's outperforming peers is Choice Hotels, with 97% of locations in the U.S. continuing to operate. For more on the path forward for the travel and hospitality industry, I'm joined by Pacious. He's the CEO of Choice Hotels. Pat, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
You know, the first question everyone around here had is, how in the world do you keep 97% of your hotels operating?
Well, 90% of them are owned by small business owners, and we operate in the mid-scale and the extended stay segment. The majority of our portfolio is in those segments. So owners are able to flex their payroll costs depending on the seasonality of demand. They're able to close out entire hotel floors if they need to. So these owners are very flexible, and they also have financed their assets with a low level of debt. So their debt service in many cases is not so overwhelming that they can't get through a really tough time like this.
I assume you guys are too big, but maybe you're not. And what about a lot of your small business franchisees? Are they getting PPP support?
So about 70% of our hotels have been able to access either the PPP or the EIDL disaster relief loans from the SBA. I had the opportunity to go to the White House with a lot of my industry colleagues about I guess a month and a half ago now, and we were able to advocate for those changes to the small business loans that allowed more of our small business owners to actually be eligible. And as a result of that, we've seen a high number of them apply for those loans and are getting funding.
And what would you say, so the restaurants in particular, but there was a Texas hotelier who kind of caught everybody's ire. What would you say to the people who said, why did you guys get a carve out so that each location was treated individually and more people could get help? And why is that fair?
Well, I think you have to think about the hotel industry. I mean, when this started, we were housing people from the Nashville tornadoes. So the hotel industry is a necessary functioning asset to have in any time of emergency. A lot of the people that are in our hotels today are National Guard or COVID-19 responders. So the hotel business, when hurricanes come in, tornadoes come in, it provides a place for shelter when people have to leave their homes. And so that's another reason why we are part of the critical infrastructure and why a lot of the state governments allowed hotels to remain open during this time.
No, that's a great point. It also explains where, some of that revenue is coming from right now. Like you said, you have special room rates, but you've allowed people to open for hospital overflows, temporary housing for first responders, healthcare workers, critical infrastructure workers, and others in dire need. I wanted to ask you about, once you have the hotels open for those folks, what happens? We spoke with the president of Northwestern University a couple of weeks ago. He said they're looking at possibly using hotel rooms in the Evanston area if they need to for their students to return to campus and social distance this fall. Would you guys be open to something like that from different colleges and universities across the nation?
That is something we are looking at. We have a lot of hotels in college towns, and with students not being able to study abroad, you're going to have a lot higher student population on the campuses. And a number of universities are reaching out to our hotel owners and asking about the ability to rent out their hotels during the upcoming fall semester. So it is something I believe our hotels are uniquely positioned to support that type of overflow if the universities need that.
Hey, no study abroad. I hadn't even considered that. If they're not only on campus but not leaving, that could be, 10%, 20% of students in some universities.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Pat, let's talk about, you guys have obviously had to make some cutbacks, suspended the dividend, share buybacks, 401k matches, hiring freezes, and many of the measures that many other companies are taking right now as well. What is the path forward? I mean, how quickly do you expect, especially hotel demand, to return to anything like normal?
Yeah, so we entered this crisis with a very low level of debt in our balance sheet. As a company, we've always been a prudent allocator of capital. So we were able to not have to really impact our cost structure until we had a really good idea as to what was happening. So we probably had an additional 30 days worth of industry insights before we had to take significant cost measures. I think what we're going to see is a return to travel that will be regional and sporadic. It's what we're seeing today. The southeast part of the country, where a lot of our hotels are located, did rebound sooner. We're seeing weekend build weekend over weekend as more travelers are able to get out. And 2/3 of our business is leisure travel in normal times. And so we do expect leisure travel to return before business or group travel. And we think that will benefit our owners as well.
And if I were thinking about staying in one of your hotels, what would you tell me about the cleaning procedures now?
So we just launched a new initiative, our commitment to cleanliness. It is a initiative that has new protocols. So when you walk in to the hotel, you're going to see a glass partition between yourself and the front desk. There's hand sanitizers in the elevators. There will be a captain or a cleanliness captain, a person designated at each hotel to make sure that those heightened protocols are being followed. So extra cleanliness, extra partitions. And we're really moving to a world where we're going to do touchless check-in and the ability for you to opt out of housekeeping. So if you don't want a housekeeper in your room while you're staying there, you can opt to do that as well.
Pacious, so many fascinating tidbits. Thank you so much for joining me today.